In 2025, I sold over $1 million worth of product on Amazon, and this is episode 17 of me scaling my business from 1 to 3 million in 2026. In this last week of April, we're going to talk about some of the struggles I was going through because there were definitely a lot, but also some of the great implementations I made to the business and give you guys an overall raw reality of what it's like actually getting to the milestones that I've reached so far this year. And just to give you a more authentic feeling video for this week. So I hope you're ready and staying tuned. And before we jump in, if you guys haven't subscribed to the newsletter yet, you can feel free to subscribe. The link is in the description below. I post content on here once a week on Wednesdays, helping you start or scale your Amazon business. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the final week of April and see how everything went. All right, so jumping into the weekly P&L for the last week of April. So I bought over 1,700 units this week at an ACOG of $38.19 and an ASP of $69.73. And this month we pretty much closed out at 350 unique ASINs, which is awesome. So much more than I thought I was going to be able to buy. 30% ROI, 17% gross margin, 120K in estimated sales. Spend was at 66K this week with on hold of being about $8,000, and then gross profit of about 20K. And then we can see here based on our projections that net profit for the month of April was looking to be about 66,000, and then net margin was about 14.78%. All right, so again, these are all projections, so this is likely going to taper off a good few percent. I would say this is going to likely dip to like 11%. So whatever the multiple on that is kind of where I project to be. To show you guys my payout overview, so this is what we got paid out for the entirety of April, which is really good cash flow. I just did get approved too for a new Chase Inc. card, and I got like an additional 70K in funding from that. And then I got a new Amex card that's let me spend up to like 150K. So I got a ton of credit this month, which is awesome. So I won't have to be worried about capital for the foreseeable future at least. And I also had a really good cycle of payouts this month. So let's go ahead and jump into the Google spreadsheet and I'll show you guys kind of what the final numbers are looking like over there. Okay, so now in the Google sheet here, we can see that to close out the month with all of these being gross numbers, 34% ROI, 17.92% margin, 460K in estimated sales with about $250,000 in spend, and then a estimated 80K in profit. Again, this is all gross. So units, we bought pretty much 8,600 units with an ACOG of 28.76 and a ASP of $53.80. So you can see that is much higher than the spend goal that I had previously set, which is really awesome to obviously see that we are able to achieve much more than that. And especially in the month and climate that I was operating under this month, very, very busy month. We'll go over all the stuff I was working on this past week and just getting my ass kicked overall, quite frankly. And then moving into the net numbers, you guys can see if I adjust this here to the 30th, this is pretty much all the stuff you guys already knew from the Google Doc. So let's go ahead and jump into seller board. I'll show you guys what we sold this past week, show you the net numbers and everything like that. All right, so here on seller board, you guys can see this past week we sold about 87K, which is a lot lower than prior week, especially with an extra day in there. This week was definitely rough, just overall, right? Just gonna give a disclaimer, this was definitely a rough week. 1,600 units sold, 120 refunds, and then a 11K in gross profit. If we take a look at the refund rate and everything here, it's very, very high. So it's at 7.3% with 35% sellable returns, gross margin of 12.86%. So really don't think we're going to make any more than like 8-9% margin this week, which is not very good. I think a part of that though has to do with I had some outbound stuff, a lot of outbound stuff. I think I spent like $1,000 in outbound prep on the very last day of April. So that definitely has something to do with the lower margin there. And just like overall us not selling as much product this week, kind of coming off of the cool down that we had, which is odd because I spent so much money this month, but we're just going to have to see kind of what transpires in May. And then the refund rate I got to work on. It's been getting out of control. So I really got to start dialing in and cutting some fat there. I think I've been very focused on just like growing. So I've just been kind of taking it as like it is what it is. But now we're getting up over 5% on the entire month of April when usually we're down to like 4. So that's, that's going to take a hit on the margin, right? So let me go ahead and calculate these net numbers and then I'll show you guys on screen. All right, so we can see after all of our overhead and everything, we spent about $3,300, for this 8-day period. And then if we take that and subtract it from the gross numbers here, we ended the week at about $7,700 in profit. Which is so funny that like I look at this now and I'm like, that's like a pretty shitty week. When, literally I think it was like a month and a half ago, I was like thrilled to be doing numbers like this. So it's kind of like, it's weird. Like I wish I was more grateful for it, but I just know like this is not good in comparison to the sales. So if we take this and what is that, 778621. So if we take this and we then divide that by our sales, we're going to see what our net margin for the week was, which it's pretty much 9%. So again, like I'm really not happy with that at all. This was a really tough week, just all like thick and through. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into like what I was working on this week, give you guys some context as to why it was a tough week, but also be able to transparently share with my audience the realities of actually like scaling a business, doing content, working in so many different fields it feels like, and just not having a ton of time, but to work. So I'll go ahead and we'll jump into the Google Doc and I'll share some stuff. All right, so for the things that I was working on this week, so final sourcing days. So we ended up spending way more money than I intended that we were going to spend. So for the first few days of this week, I ended up doing some more final sourcing. And then after that, I literally just like stopped sourcing. I let the VAs just send what they find and just kind of ran it off of that. And then that led into other tasks, which the biggest one is going to be software expansion. So this week was huge for software changes. I had a lot of stuff on the to-do list that I wanted to get done, and I figured what better time to do it than when we're ahead. So I made about 7 different operational changes. A couple are still unfinished, but most are complete. So here's the list of stuff that was like actually massively different from what we had before. So I created an entire Prep Center ticket audit system to catch Prep Center leakage and sitting inventory. So if any of you guys use a Prep Center, you know how much of a pain in the ass they can be to manage. And that's just more so from like stuff going missing, partially received, things where the items aren't arriving, like so many different scenarios where you can get shorted. And essentially, I needed to have a better way for my VAs to audit that because they do all of it manually. It takes forever. It's really hard because you have to look at like every single tracking number to figure out, okay, is it a supplier fault or is it a prep center fault? So I created an entire ticket system with a dashboard and essentially literally everything somebody would need to actually go and start getting reconciliation on that stuff done. Again, the biggest thing is that it's like I have a system now, but if my team's not doing it, then nothing gets done, which I haven't seen it touched yet. So I'm going to have to get on them about that. That definitely bakes into some of the frustration because I spent a lot of time working on some of this stuff and then it feels like the team is not really there, but that's a reflection of something that I need to enforce more heavy. So it is what it is. Next, I created a way to automate seller board cogs for my VAs. So now they just enter what's in our portal. So before we were having to figure out like how much old stock we have on hand, all that type of stuff. I created a way to get our Seller Central connected to my software through an API connection. And now essentially all that stuff has been automated. So now the VA just literally enters what's old, what's new, and it's a pretty quick process now, which is great. I'm currently working on a system that creates automatic inbound entries into my prep center. So no longer do we have to enter stuff manually, which I already had a system created for that through just like CSVs, but now we're just going to do it automatically as things are entered into the portal, into my software portal. And then that data then automatically passes the tracking numbers as well through and onto the prep centers automatically. So I had to restructure the way we were doing like the automatic importing. I couldn't use CSVs if I wanted to get my tracking numbers to go through as well. So in order to make this stuff work, I essentially had to revamp the entire system. We're very close, but it's still going to take probably another couple hours of development before it's fully finalized. So I've just been trying to navigate my time as best as I can. Next, I automated my repricing cost of goods updates. So just added like a button and a connection from Seller Snap, which is the repricer I use, to Inventory Labs because we don't use that for accounting, but we do use it for reimbursements. So essentially, I'm just pulling a CSV of all my cost of goods at face level from Sellerboard. Since I update my stuff once a week, everything's up to date. We take that CSV, we dump it into Inventory Labs. That updates our cost per unit for every single ASIN. And then Inventory Labs with the connection to SellerSnap then automatically updates our cost of goods, making sure that our repricing is accurate but also more efficient. So that definitely helps. That was kind of like a side thing. I didn't plan to do that, but just happened to take an hour out of the day and make it happen. So, and then lastly, I'm working on creating an AI agent for ticket handling for prep center inquiries. So essentially like providing prompts to the VA who's handling that stuff and being like, hey, here's a message that you can send to the prep center in regards to inquiry XYZ, right? So building a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of stuff that has taken a lot of time right now, but will certainly pay, dividends in the future. So just got to keep my head down, stay focused, and try and stay mentally, you know what I mean, okay, even though stuff is like obviously a little tough right now. And then finally, I took about 6 one-on-one team meetings. Team meetings. I say team meetings, but it's just one-on-one meetings with the team. So each person got a one-on-one to end the month because we had 3 new hires from March. So it was obviously a time where I wanted to touch base, see how everybody's liking their job, see how if there's anything like we can improve. I think everyone performed really well this month though. Like I really don't feel like anyone underperformed in accordance to the expectations I had set and the time availability and resource capacity that I had to train and leverage my other, competent team to help out. So I feel like everything there went fine. I just feel like right now there's things that are not being done that need to get done. So I just need to like really get on them about that. I feel like. And I hope for the future I can start putting people in real management positions because it's certainly tiring looking after 6 people, I'll be honest. So definitely something that we're going to be working towards for the rest of the year is just putting people in positions where they are managers. So like this week I promoted both of my best working virtual assistants to a assistant manager position to essentially give them a title that, hey, you are going to be assisting with operations and things that I need help with when it comes to training or when it comes to essentially looking after them, which they've already been doing. So I figured let's give them the title. Let's make it known that this is going to be a real opportunity in the future. So they got raises. They were all excited and stuff, which is great to see. But overall, we are going to need to start like hunkering down on stuff and people who are not doing stuff on time because it is obviously just a point of emphasis that things need done. And having a team of 6 at this point feels like, okay, I have enough manpower to where it's like shit should be getting done because truthfully I feel like I could run this thing off a team of 4. So it is just a little bit frustrating, right? I'm sure you guys can tell I'm a little bit frustrated. Meetings went well and everything. Some struggles and talking points. I'll be completely transparent with you guys and say that this was probably one of the hardest weeks in business I've had in a while. I felt like I was doing quite literally everything at every second of the day, and if I stepped away from the computer, everything was falling down. I still feel a little bit like that, so I'm hoping that I can get out of the trenches soon, but what needs to be done is what needs to be done, and it is what it is, right? So just from sourcing, managing, training systems, building a software, creating content, creating my side project that you guys will know about soon. Every single night I've been going to bed past 3 a.m., getting like 6 hours of sleep. It's been tough. I mean, it's been a real like week in the life of somebody, who's working a company that they're trying to grow to 4 to 5 million this year. I mean, at this point, we've already done a million in the year, so I feel like going for 4 to 5 million is pretty achievable. I think 3 million we got, we're on the up and up for that. So just striving for more every single day, and it's really hard because I think this year I've put a big priority on being very selfless, like not giving any time to myself, not really doing much for myself. And that's totally fine. And I think that's contributed to a lot of the growth I've seen is that I've been investing more into my team, whether that be with software, whether that be with just like focusing on their needs. And, it's obviously hard when you have 6 people to cater to really start focusing on everybody's needs. So I really just feel like I want some help. I feel like that's the main thing that's been exhausting. It's just like sometimes it feels like I can't rely on, the people that are with me, but I think it's also a temporary feeling because when I pull back the curtains, it's like I've built a lot and I've done a lot and there's a lot that's happened. And I think naturally when you're growing and you're tired and you're exhausted, it's just an indicator that you have a couple more weeks of just bullshit to deal with, and then everything will kind of reside back to how it should be, and everything like that. And I've been putting a lot of pressure on myself to perform because of us being ahead for April. So I wanted to get a lot of stuff rolled out. I'm going to Miami Seller Conference here in about a week. So I'm just trying to get everything done last minute before I go there because I want to enjoy my trip. It'll be a really fun time. And something that I'm trying to keep in mind is that delayed gratification is very real. And that, the work that I'm putting in today or tomorrow won't be really acknowledged or praised for, at least a good couple months. To really see growth in the business. And in the last 4 months, I think something that's given me some gratitude is that, I do look back and I've done a lot, which is being able to post consistently on YouTube and, give you guys as much free game as I can. That obviously takes time and a lot of dedication to do. Not only that, being able to hire 3 VAs, so literally double my team size in 4 months. And all of them actually are proficient at what they do. They are good. Again, they all met expectations and everything like that. Created a software entirely from scratch, scaled the business over 300K a month. I mean, there's real output that's coming out of the work that I'm doing, but sometimes it just feels like it's never enough, right? And it's an unfortunate like blessing and curse of running a business to where very hard to find your homeostasis where you're content and you don't feel like you're not trying. It's a very hard balance to find. It takes a serious level of dedication, but most importantly, sacrifice. Right? Sometimes you're gonna have days where you can't possibly see a way out of the things you're in now, but you have to keep going. And I am saying that as I am knee deep in some crap right now. But I think spiritually, I've been through stuff like this before, which is nice having experience, obviously. And, I know time will pass and it will create better times for me in the future. So it's all about just doing what I have to do right now, doing the things I don't want to do, and just prioritizing things that are going to move the needle, right? I mean, that's really all you can do and everything there. So for next week, I'm looking to finalize any content I have left to make for YouTube, and hopefully systems that I want to finalize as well before I head off to Miami for MSC. And then also looking to dial back in on sourcing and just like overall making sure everything's going right with the OA business. As I do have an ambitious spend goal to spend 275K for the month of May. Obviously, right now, I'm not in the mentality of like I want to do that. But when things were going really hot, I was like, yeah, we can do 275. So I want to be in that positive reciprocating energy there, because if I felt like we could do that, then there's definitely a reason for it. So I'm not going to let the hard times get to me, and I'm going to push for that spend goal as much as I possibly can. And if I fall short, I'll probably fall close to the mark. So it's better than not trying at all. Right. And sometimes you just got to jump headfirst into the water and see where you end up. Right. That's part of running a business, part of taking the risk and bet on yourself, is that you're not going to hit the goal and hit the target every time. But if you got closer than you were before, then you're obviously better at what you do now. So just some words to end off and, hopefully inspire people who are in a similar spot where you feel overwhelmed, you feel like you have no time, you feel like shit's crumbling, right? It's part of the game. It means you're doing something right. So if you don't feel like that, then you're probably either really enjoying your life, which is awesome, or you might not be growing as much as you probably should. So that's going to be all for this week. I hope you guys did enjoy. I know this was a different type of video, a lot more talking head in this one here, but just wanted to be honest and share some real world stuff that I'm going through, because it looks like sunshine and rainbows on the outside, but it's definitely not when it comes to actually getting things done. So really hope you guys appreciated this video. Again, newsletter is linked in the description below if you want to sign up for that. And that's going to be all from me on this one. So I will see you guys in the next video.